What's happening, players, and welcome to the Movie Cricket Podcast for the 2nd of October 2014. As always, my name is Billy, and this week's podcast will be somewhat of a Walking Dead special. We're going to talk a lot of Dead this week. The new season 5 is set to arrive on the 12th of October, so it's under 2 weeks away. Lots of news is hitting about it, and I'm very, very excited. So I'm going to end the podcast on lots of Walking Dead news. But I'd like to start the podcast off with some interesting news about the new Bond film. Rihanna, the pop star, has been offered an unspecified role and the majesty of creating the theme song for the next Bond 24 movie from Eon Productions. Production on the next Bond movie starring Daniel Craig will begin later this year in December. Eon Productions look to get the ball rolling in the deep now, however, as they approach Rihanna as the new star to provide the next Bond film theme tune. And that is not all. Rihanna has also been offered an unspecified role within the film, with Rihanna said to be a huge fan of the franchise. Does this mean that Rihanna is set to become the next Bond girl? Rihanna may have been directly affected by the fappening when a huge flurry of leaked nude and naked celebrity photos swept across the web, but her career is showing no signs of hindrance. An unspecified source told the British tabloid The Sunday Mirror that Rihanna was offered a role in the movie and that she didn't even need to consider accepting the offer. The source said, Rihanna is a big fan of the Bond films and has always loved the idea of appearing in one. She didn't even need to think about it. She knows what she wants to do. She's really excited. So, Rihanna made a feature debut in the admittedly poor 2012 action movie Battleship. I will completely forgive you if you've already forgotten that film. It is completely forgettable. She then played herself in last year's comedy from Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, James Franco, Jonah Hill, with This Is the End, when the singer kind of got cheesed on by Craig Robinson before falling down a giant hole in the ground. The singer has also lent a voice to DreamWorks Animation's Home, which arrives in theatres next March. So Rihanna is no stranger to the camera, and this makes little surprise that Eon are considering the actress for a singing and performance role. It seems, however, the main concern for the new theme song. After Adele provided the classy soundtrack for Skyfall, her stardom was propelled worldwide. Adele won an Oscar and a Golden Globe for the title song, and although Rihanna is already an established pop star, a gig like the Bond theme song is one that only comes around for certain elite artists. So, the source claims that Rihanna will pull the double role and provide the theme song and a role in Bond 24. The last actress and singer to pull double duty by both singing the theme song and appearing in the James Bond film was Madonna in 2002's Die Another Day, which was also Pierce Brosnan's last stint as 007. So, who knows, maybe Rihanna's going to be aligned with Madonna for more reasons than one. In other news this week, and by far the most bizarre story to come out of the new October month, is a live-action science fiction film based on the famous video game Tetris is in the works from Larry Kasanoff. No, really, this is not a joke. Don't ask us why, and we can't even really answer how, but plans are afoot for a big screen adaptation of the infamous video game Tetris. Even as I tell you this story, my mind's pretty much boggled just as much as yours is. So, Tetris is obviously the video game where stacked bricks have to be completed. It's pretty thrilling. It's very thrilling. So, this Tetris live-action adaptation is being backed by a man named Larry Kasanoff, who is the CEO of Threshold Entertainment. Now, some of you might know the name of his company or the man himself, but this company are the very same whose film track record includes flicks for certain theme parks and a couple of Lego special shorts. But the cherry on the top is the hugely delayed and god-awful Food Fight, which is an animation movie starring the voice of Charlie Sheen. The film took 9 years to arrive following its original release date and featured some of the worst ideas and some of the most terrible animation ever to be made in an actual movie. But don't let this put you off the Tetris movie, guys, not at all. Kasanoff told the Wall Street Journal of his big plans for Tetris. He said, "It's very big, epic, sci-fi movie. This isn't a movie with a bunch of lines running around the page. We're not giving feet to the geometric shapes." So, why is he going after Tetris? It's a pretty one-dimensional game, if you kind of forgive the lack of pun there, but the answer is in his next quote, where he said, "Brands are the new stars of Hollywood," Kasanoff said. "We have a story behind Tetris which makes it much more imaginative." So, brands, the idea of brands. Marvel, you could argue, have accomplished bringing a brand to the cinema, you could maybe argue, but it was still story based, it was still character driven to some extent. So Kasanoff seems to be basing his future career on Tetris being about a brand, and this sounds suspiciously like the poorly executed idea in Food Fight. In Food Fight, kind of, it's set in a supermarket from what I can remember of it, and Charlie Sheen plays the protagonist Dog, with the rest of the characters made up of supermarket brands which run around and are personified by their actions and their aesthetics, and it's absolutely horrendous. And this idea makes me absolutely shudder. Taking a well-known brand name and perverting it for the sake of selling movie tickets. On this first impression, and the words spoken by Kasanoff himself, this seems like a terrible idea, but it'd be unfair to condemn the film before we've seen more, so who knows, Charlie Sheen might voice the protagonist Tetris Block, who knows, but yeah, basically a Tetris film is in development, so stay tuned for that one, guys. Making Star Wars news this week, is J.J. Abrams taking Star Wars Episode 7 back to Endor? The new sequel could be returning to Endor as J.J. Abrams takes the shoot to the Forest of Dean in England. So, J.J. Abrams is looking to recreate the Forest of Endor, as rumours state, by shooting Star Wars Episode 7 in the Forest of Dean. The Forest of Dean is a geographical, cultural region near the Welsh border in England, Gloucester. It's now become a location for Disney Star Wars Episode 7, that is a fact, but allegedly J.J. Abrams is attempting to practically recreate the Forest of Endor using the environments of the forest. So, whilst our source actually for this quite humorously misspells whales by spelling it like the water-based mammal, throughout their entire article, the publisher reports that the production continues to shoot on various locations across the UK, and last week JJ spent his time filming a large woodland battle featuring thousands of extras. Now, this story is potentially more revealing than you might think in the first place. Whilst the source also wrongly states numerous times that the Forest of Dean is in Wales, we can forgive those geographical errors because they're from across the pond in the US. This makes their scoop no less valid. The Star Wars sequel spent all week in the Forest of Dean. The cast and the crew are holding up, slumming it in a 5-star Celtic Manor resort, and where they shuttled back and forth from the hotel to Puzzlewood. So, on set was John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Pip Anderson, who was the candidate who was successful after the open auditions. They were all present along with thousands of extras. Interestingly, the same source reports of overhearing conversations between Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and the production team where they discussed the tone of the new sequels in regard to their differences with fellow Disney properties like Marvel and Pixar. J.J. Abrams and his team are said to be looking to differentiate themselves from Marvel and Pixar by creating a more unified, cohesive tone within these sequel movies. This opposes to Marvel's creativity and pursuit to make each film like a mix and match with different blends of styles and genres, different types of directors. Coming up soon, obviously, you've got Scott Derrickson, who's kind of exclusively a horror director compared with Peyton Reed for Ant-Man, who is pretty exclusively comedy. So Marvel are looking to create significantly different genres, different mix and match films. J.J. Abrams and Disney are now apparently trying to make Star Wars more cohesive with a select and defined tone. So whilst J.J. Abrams remained tight-lipped with the source when he was asked what was being shot in Puzzlewood, as you would expect, the reporter did manage to eavesdrop on some conversations where he revealed a woodland battle is taking place on location with an epic scope and thousands of extras on set. It will also include a pivotal fight scene among some of the new characters, presumably with Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Adam Driver and Pip Anderson on set. This could be potentially a new Jedi, Sith or Empire-based battle. The source notably reports that the vibe on set was unusually upbeat, with the actors having a blast. Continue quote, even director J.J. Abrams was visibly excited, end quote. So we can't really imagine the vibes on set for Star Wars being anything but exciting, but it is an interesting specification from the source, who were definitely on set as proved by photos taken by the reporter himself with J.J. Abrams. What is interesting is that thousands of extras were present, and this would surely suggest some sort of serious battle is taking place on what we assume can only be Endor. So is Star Wars Episode 7 going back to Endor? Will Warwick Davis be the king of the Ewoks by now? Or could this be a different forest planet? We don't know for sure. This is just where Star Wars is shooting right now. So, interestingly, on one of our podcasts from May, we were saying how it's so important that JJ and Disney recreate the elements of Star Wars that we all loved, and Endor was a big part of that discussion, and sort of returning to locations which mean something to the Star Wars universe, and it seems like J.J. Abrams is definitely doing that. Let's kind of ignore those ugly Chrome Troopers that came out last week, which are absolutely horrendous. We really hope they're not real, because they're anything but fit into a familiar aesthetic. But everything else seems fantastically positive about Star Wars. Shooting on location is an absolute must. All the practical that's going into the film, that's constantly being boasted and promoted about in any press release about Star Wars. Any actor that's doing an interview is talking about the practical that's on set, the practical effects, the practical sets. So yeah, all really positive stuff coming out of Star Wars. Are they shooting on Endor? We don't particularly know, but everything would point to that. So speaking of Marvel slightly, there has been a little bit of interesting superhero news this week, where Miles Teller of the Fantastic Four is adamant that Josh Trank's movie will be different from the rest. We are incredibly, growingly cynical about the superhero genre right now. We're firmly stuck in the mindset that the superhero genre is oversaturating mainstream cinema releases. From a personal point of view, like, comic book movies are everywhere, and whilst Marvel are trying their best to keep things fresh, mixing up the genres and expectations that come with each release, every major studio is trying to get a piece of the pie, and I'm really concerned that it's becoming far too much now. It's dominating far too much screen time in mainstream cinema. It seems to be all that a lot of people talk about, and it's kind of dumbing down the industry to some extent. So, is the comic book genre burning too quickly? That's the kind of idea that I'm trying to suggest. So, are we getting too used to having over a dozen big comic book movies released every year in, year out, or are we simply spoiled for choice? Is it just the fact that these movies are all quality films and we're just perceiving them less than they should be because of the quantity? So Miles Teller is adamant that Josh Trank's Fantastic Four reboot is going to be very different in every way from what we've previously seen. Whilst we remain skeptical, here's what Reed Richards had to say. So, before the film is even nearing release, bear in mind, the film stars are already trying to make this film feel more unique, in a genre that's obviously overpopulated and continues to saturate the cinema. So we were really starting to have enough of the superhero genre, in all honesty, but Guardians of the Galaxy perhaps revitalised the genre for us, and it was like a fresh genre blend and creative characters, and Fox are undoubtedly very, very aware of the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. They've moved their release date to August 2015, with Guardians obviously being released in August, becoming the most successful film ever released in that month. So Fox are obviously trying to replicate somewhat of the success that Guardians created, but how much longer can the genre continue to churn out film after film of the same type of movie with a slight variation? There's no doubt that these comic book films are magnificent in spectacle, and I will admit I enjoy most of them enough whilst in the cinema, but I am growing ever tired of this genre taking up every decent cinema spot. Right now, I cannot wait for Christopher Nolan's Interstellar and David Fincher's Gone Girl to just remind people that cinema's it's about more than a quick flurry of fight scenes and explosions, fancy costumes, and less than creative comic book adaptation narratives. There's more. There's more. I'm ranting a little bit now, but will Josh Trank's Fantastic Four truly be different? Let's get back on subject. So, Miles Teller says that the upcoming comic book movie, where he remains adamant that the film is different in every way from the previous Fantastic Four films. Miles Teller said, quote, "All those actors were a lot older, their characters were in different places, the tone of this film is completely different. We don't have Michael Chilkis in big stylophone things. You're dealing with these characters, but you're making them real people in how they exist day to day. People want it to be taken more seriously than the kind of Dick Tracy, kitschy, over comic book world." So, this sounds less than convincing to me right now. The strength of this movie so far comes from the admittedly smart castings in front of the camera, and the acquisition of Josh Trank, who is obviously soon to be a Star Wars spin-off director, behind the camera. However, in terms of plot, does this sound like anything as innovative as Miles Teller really thinks it is? Let's return to the quote. He says, "You're dealing with these characters, but you're making them real people." That isn't a new idea. It's just regurgitating. It's taking something that's already been done, and this is the problem with so many superhero films coming out. There's only so much that people can do. Like, even Miles Teller himself, in reply to "Has the superhero genre peaked already?" he says it's dependent on the product, and he is right. Like, as far as Guardians of the Galaxy was concerned, you'd have to agree. But Thor 2, Sony's Amazing Spider-Man 2, will anyone remember those films in 10 years? But I can barely remember the plot of Spider-Man 2 already. It was just such a mismatch of special effects and slow-mo. And Thor 2, like, I enjoyed the kind of buddy film romance between Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth a little bit, but the villain was completely forgettable. Christopher Eccleston's dark elf guy, like, I don't even know what he was there for. It's a very forgettable film, and whilst we might enjoy it during the cinema, which we all admittedly do, the completely forgettable films down the line. So this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm trying to say. Fantastic Four might well be different from the other Fantastic Four films, but that isn't necessarily enough. Like, these films have to do something different when there's so many of these films being regurgitated out over and over again. I remain completely sceptical about the Fantastic Four in its whole, and whether it's even wanted or needed at all. But only time will tell on that. The Fantastic Four lands in theatres on August 2015 with Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, Jamie Bell, Toby Kebbell. The film's directed by Josh Trank, who I firmly believe will make an interesting film. But as far as anything else goes, I'm really not convinced about the necessity for a Fantastic Four reboot. It's from Fox, so they're looking to expand their superhero cling on the genre from just X-Men. So who knows where exactly that will go in the future. So, coming towards the end of the podcast now, I think it's about time that we talked some Dead. Oh yes, so the music has made a powerful comeback for this Walking Dead special discussion. With The Walking Dead Season 5 less than 2 weeks away, I wanted to do some particular highlighting of some great things coming in Season 5. There's a review up on the site. It is spoiler free for those of you. I've seen the episode and it is amazing. It is so good. As always, I'll end the podcast on a review. So this week I will review The Walking Dead Season 5 Episode 1, which is titled No Sanctuary. It's absolutely amazing, so I'm looking forward to talking about that more shortly. But let's talk some Walking Dead news this week. Kevin Durand, the star of The Strain, claims that he has been approached to play the villain Negan in AMC's The Walking Dead. Kevin Durand plays Vasily Vet on VX's The Strain. However, the actor revealed he was recently approached by the creators of The Walking Dead for a villainous role straight out of the comic books. Durand recently held a conference call to promote the show's season finale, where he revealed that AMC have approached him to play Negan in The Walking Dead. Kevin Durand was asked about different TV shows that his fans would like to see him in. Durand did not hesitate to say the following, quote, "I've had a lot of people with The Walking Dead talk to me mentioning that they see me for a character named Negan, but I have not read the comic books. At this stage I will give you a spoiler alert ahead for Season 4 of The Walking Dead." So, many Walking Dead fans have been wondering when famous comic book villain Negan would turn up in the AMC TV series. Robert Kirkman, the comic book creator and executive producer, confirmed last December that the villain would not be showing up in Season 4 because there needs to be some space between the Governor, who is played by David Morrissey, and his mid-season death, as well as Negan's debut on the show. The Walking Dead comic books give the Governor's death in, I think it was issue 48. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 48, but I definitely know Negan made his debut in issue 100. So it makes total sense that the series would follow this formula. Negan is a fantastic character. Like, the Governor was an incredible villain, but compared to what is to come from Negan, he'll seem like a totally sound guy. Like, everyone hated the Governor, he was a total dick, but Negan is just another level. So, in the Walking Dead comics, Negan leads a group called the Saviors, who use their power and resources to bully and force other surviving communities to pay them protection, almost, from the zombies. Negan wields a famous weapon which makes Daryl's crossbow look like a lollipop. Negan's weapon of choice is a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, which he likes to call Lucille. So that's pretty badass. Like, I'm sure that gives you enough of an idea that this guy is not to be messed with. Negan is also responsible for, in the comic books, for the brutal murder of one of the beloved characters currently wandering around in the Walking Dead TV series. I won't tell you who it is, but it's pretty mental. So, yeah, Kevin Durand apparently has been approached to play Negan, which you would have thought means that Negan will be coming in the next series, in Season 6. So, that's pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. He's a great character and people really enjoy him in the series. So, in other news, this was actually released a couple of days ago. I think it arrived at the weekend. But it's big Walking Dead news all the same. The new group of survivors in the Walking Dead spin-off series will be familiarly family-based within the early days of the zombie outbreak. So, this is pretty cool news. Early this month, an official Walking Dead spin-off series pilot was ordered by AMC. This series is currently being referred to as the Companion series, and this will follow a new group of survivors as they come to terms with the zombie apocalypse. there's been some interesting details about the series, including timescales in relation to the original series and the characters that are going to appear in this spin-off pilot. So this new companion series will be somewhat of a prequel, with the group being located before the zombie infection spreads across the world, and before people begin to change, civilization breaking down. So there will be 6 main characters to start with, including a father and a son, a single mother and her 2 children, and a 40-something-year-old woman named Andrea. That's right, another Andrea. Flipping Andrea. So, interestingly, the show will not run exactly parallel with the original series, despite being set in the same world. The companion series will take The Walking Dead fans to new corners of this world which remain unexplored. It's speculated that within this world, the living still outpopulate the dead, and that civilization is running on a tense high wire rather than being completely broken down in need of keeping together and put back together. So the series will document the early days of the outbreak and the efforts to contain it, and it sounds pretty awesome to us. Like, obviously big fans of The Walking Dead will easily recall the first episodes with Rick when he wakes up in the hospital and the zombie outbreak has already taken control of the world, the streets are empty, blah 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 blah. So this presumably will start just before the zombie outbreak, and then all of the news reports that people refer to in the original series, they'll all be present. The army's attempts to contain it, whatever attempts were made to contain it, so that will all be present in this series, and that excites me a lot. So here's the official rundown of the characters we are going to see this is officially announced in this companion series. So firstly, there is Sean Cabrera, who is described as a Latino male in his early 40s. Sean is a good man trying to do right by everyone in his life. That kind of positions Sean somewhat like Rick, a good guy, a father, trying to look after his family. So there's no mention of a wife in this this official announcement, so maybe his and his son's mother have died. But there's also a Cody Cabrera, who is Sean's whip-smart and rebellious teenage son, known as the angriest kid in town. So he sounds like a handful, ladies and gentlemen. There's also Nancy Tompkins, a 30-something single mum to 2 kids. Nancy looks like the girl next door, but there's an edge to her. She sounds pretty cool. Then Nick Tompkins, who is Nancy's screwed-up teenage son. He's too old to stay home, too scared to flee. And then Ashley Tompkins, who's Nancy's mostly level-headed teenage daughter. Her ambition is to direct proportion to her older brother's failures. She loves her mum, but it's time to get out of Dodge. So that's another family. And then there's Andrea Chapman, a somewhat wilted flower child. 40-something Andrea, that's another Andrea, has retreated to the outskirts of the city to recover from a horrible marriage. So, Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead creator and showrunner Dace Erickson are putting together the prequel of sorts, with more news to come on this spin-off as it comes in. So, this is all really exciting stuff. I think it's amazing they're making a spin-off series. I think it would have been very easy for them to run parallel with the show, and it would have been more tempting for a crossover. There's no reason we couldn't see a crossover in the future, and who knows, we might already have even met some of these characters in a timeline. It's impossible to say at this stage. Maybe Sean Carrera turned up in Woodbury, who knows, like anything could really have happened at the moment. So it's all really exciting. Progression is moving pretty quickly with this series. Casting is already underway, so we could maybe expect filming to start maybe at the start of next year, maybe towards spring, with who knows, like this time next year we could be sitting down to watch our first spin-off of The Walking Dead. So more on that as it comes in. Now, as always, I'm going to end the podcast on a review, and this week, of course, I'm going to review The Walking Dead Season 5 Episode 1, It will be spoiler free, so don't worry about skipping this part. I'm not going to ruin it for you. I know how much we all hate spoilers, so the only spoilers to be found will be past into series 4 and beyond, so there'll be nothing in terms of this new episode, just what to expect and why you should be even more excited than you are. So, where to start? Like, season 5 is the first Walking Dead series to start off straight after the finale episode of the previous season. This makes for a very interesting introduction, as you can imagine, and it sets up plenty of obstacles to overcome in the early advancements of the episode and the new season's story. No Sanction, which is the title of this new episode, is action-packed. It's an exhilarating return to the world of the dead. Scott Gimple returns as the showrunner and the writer of this episode. Gimple creates a wonderful introduction which is by no means spoon-fed to us for what is to come in the future season. The episode is quite efficiently split into 2 parallel storylines with some limited crossover and overlap towards the end of the episode, but throughout the episode simplicity is still there. Rick Grimes went to pretty extraordinary lengths to stay alive and save Carl in the last season, and this still seems to me like the core theme. What would you do to stay alive? What would you do to survive? And that is really foregrounded straight away. Like, I can see this being a running theme for the whole series. The lengths that our group are now going to go to, or have to go to, just to stay alive. So the issues raised by Rick and the cannibals of Terminus in the last season resonate throughout the entire episode. The plot is driven powerfully through dialogue and further character development, but the episode engages with an interesting idea, and this is how Rick sees his group, how the group sees itself, and how the rest of the world looks at our group. So these interesting observations are really sharp and really telling, and they set up an acute relationship or two for the future of the season. It's a really interesting idea that there will be different perceptions of you and your group from the outside. Like, the group obviously know by now that Rick is a good guy, but on first impressions he's biting people's throats out. He's shooting people and asking questions later sometimes. So it's really difficult for this new group to establish that they are good people in this new world. Who knows, they might be villains. Like, in certain proportions, they are villains. They've done bad things. No one's hands are clean. So this idea of losing who they are and how they want to see themselves is really, really interesting. Also, Greg Nicotero directs the opening episode with an all-you-can-crush zombie head buffet, which is absolutely amazing. It's vintage Nicotero. Nobody can master the bloody ballet of death like Nicotero can, and this is quite remarkable when you consider he joined The Walking Dead as a humble special effects guy back in season 1. He then became an executive producer when AMC realised his worth to the show, and now he's like one of the most precious directors with a magical eye for all things detailed and bloody. Nicotero's direction is fluid and intimate, and whenever he's directing an episode you can guarantee there's going to be some gore going on. So Nicotero's screen is a canvas on which he uses blood red paints to create a beautiful medley of chaos and character. It's bloody, but it's so focused on development, and that's what's important. There are horrifyingly beautiful moments in this episode and some mind-crushing special effects, but the season very much picks up on the sense of high tension, high stakes, and a high body count, and everything is thrown into this episode. So in terms of character, it's difficult to tell you too much without revealing spoilers, but definitely watch out for the evolution or further evolution of Melissa McBride's Carol. I love Carol. She's absolutely amazing. She's evolved from being a jittery housewife to a broken soul when she lost her daughter to a hardened heroine, and now she's like a one-woman zombie crusher. So Her character development looks even stronger for this series. I can't wait to see where Carol goes. You'll love what happens with Carol. No more on that, but also, as you expect, Andrew Lincoln is fantastic. He's smouldering, he's brooding, he's more unpredictable than ever, and the show definitely has a few surprises in store. So, in summary, the violence is brutal. Really, really brutal. But the point is, it's meaningful and it's considered. It's not just mindless gore, it's calculated and you anticipate it, or it completely surprises you. The show continues to impress, and it's got an increased visual flair, increased production value on the makeup, on the costumes, on the set designs even. And this is despite AMC's tightly shut wallets nowadays. It's pretty interesting how The Walking Dead has kind of managed to avoid these cuts. But the show produces some incredible value of production and creativity. And honestly, if this is any indication for what is to come in Season 5, it's going to be one hell of a ride. So as far as the premiere episodes go, this is honestly up there with the best The Walking Dead has produced so far. I'll be interested to hear the rest of your comments when it finally arrives on the 12th of October in the US and the 13th of October here in the UK. It's under 2 weeks away, guys, so I hope you're excited for it as I am. It's going to be amazing. I hope you're excited. And next time we speak will be less than a week away, so I'm sure I'll have lots more Walking Dead news for you next week. Thanks for stopping by, guys. This has been the Movie Cricket Podcast with Billy, and I will see you next week on the 9th of October. Thanks, guys. See you later.